I never thought a simple late-night rabbit hole on a random forum would end up dismantling my entire life. But here I am, sitting in a cold, empty apartment, wondering if I'm the villain or the only person who actually woke up to the truth. They say curiosity killed the cat, but in my case, curiosity uncovered a betrayal so calculated and so deeply buried that it makes every horror movie I've ever seen look like a children's bedtime story. Imagine finding out that the person you've shared a bed with for 7 years, the person who held your hand at your father's funeral and promised to grow old with you, wasn't just keeping a small secret, but was actually living a completely parallel existence, designed specifically to exploit your trust. I'm standing at the edge of a cliff now, looking back at the wreckage of what I thought was a perfect marriage, and I have to ask you straight up, if you found a digital blueprint of your own downfall, would you burn the world down or would you walk away quietly? Was I wrong for the way I chose to expose the rot? Or did I do what anyone with a shred of self-respect would have done in my shoes? It all started about 6 months ago, and honestly, it began with nothing more than a bit of insomnia and a fascination with those cool things I learned on the internet threads that pop up on social media. I've always been a bit of a tech head, someone who enjoys learning about obscure OSINT tools, archive data, and how the digital footprint we leave behind is much larger than we realize. My wife, Sarah, used to joke that I was a frustrated private investigator. She'd laugh, kiss my forehead, and tell me to come to bed instead of chasing ghosts on the web. We had what everyone called the gold standard relationship. We met in our late 20s, both established in our careers. I'm in software development, and she's a high-level executive at a marketing firm, and everything just clicked. We'd bought a house in a quiet suburb, we had 2 dogs, and we were even starting to talk about having kids. Sarah was the light of every room she walked into, the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday and always knew exactly what to say to make you feel the most important person in the world. But that night, as I sat in my home office at 3 a.m., the light of my monitor burning into my tired eyes, I stumbled upon a niche archiving site that specialized in retrieving deleted forum posts from the early 2010s. It was a hobbyist site, mostly used for finding old gaming tips or lost media. Out of sheer boredom, I decided to test the search parameters using some old handles Sarah used to mention she used back in college. I expected to find some cringe-worthy poetry or old rants about professors. Instead, I found a series of entries on a private lifestyle board that didn't match the Sarah I knew at all. The posts described a very specific philosophy, the long game. The user, whose details matched Sarah's old email and birthday, was detailing a strategy for finding a stable provider who could be molded into a safety net while she maintained her actual romantic interests on the side. My heart did a slow, heavy thud in my chest. I told myself it was just a phase, a young woman being cynical or edgy online. People change, right? We all have a past we aren't proud of. But as I dug deeper using some of those cool data scraping tricks I'd recently learned, I realized the posts didn't stop when we got married. In fact, they became more frequent. She wasn't just posting, she was documenting our relationship like a case study. She described how she picked me because I was predictable, financially upwardly mobile, and emotionally easy to manage. She wrote about how she'd staged our first meeting at that coffee shop. It wasn't a meet cute or a coincidence. She had tracked my LinkedIn, figured out my routine, and placed herself in my path. Every argument we ever had, every time I felt like I was the one who needed to apologize, every time she surprised me with exactly what I needed, it was all scripted. She was using a community of like-minded individuals to crowdsource her manipulation of me. I began to look back at our entire history through this new, distorted lens. I remembered the time I lost my job 3 years ago. I was devastated, but Sarah had been so calm, so supportive. She told me to take my time, that we were a team. At the time, I thought she was an angel. Now, reading her posts from that same month, I saw the truth. She was panicking because her asset was underperforming. She was actually consulting her online group about whether she should cut her losses or if it was worth investing in my recovery because my career potential was still high. She stayed not out of love, but out of a cold, calculated risk assessment. I felt sick to my stomach. I spent the next 3 weeks living a double life. By day, I was the loving, doting husband, bringing her coffee and asking about her meetings. By night, I was a ghost in the machine, using every advanced internet tool in my arsenal to peel back the layers of her digital mask. I learned how to bypass the hidden folders on our shared cloud drive, and what I found there broke me. There were photos, years of them, with a man I didn't recognize, someone she'd traveled with on her business trips. There were spreadsheets detailing our finances, showing how she had been slowly siphoning off a divorce fund into an offshore account I didn't know existed. She was planning to leave me the moment her exit strategy hit a certain dollar amount, which, according to the math, was only a few months away. She was going to take half the house, her secret savings, and vanish into a life she'd already built with someone else, leaving me with nothing but questions and a broken heart. It was the ultimate betrayal. I felt like I was living in a simulation. The woman who told me she loved me every morning was the same woman who wrote online that I was a boring but necessary investment. I even found recordings she had taken of our private conversations. She would record me while I was venting about work or being vulnerable about my insecurities, then upload snippets to her private forum to ask for advice on how to use those specific weaknesses to keep me compliant. The level of psychological warfare she was waging was beyond anything I could have imagined. She had categorized my personality into trigger points and reward cycles. When I did something she liked, she triggered a reward, affection, a favorite meal, intimacy. When I stepped out of line, she initiated a subtle withdrawal phase to make me anxious and eager to please her again. I was being trained like an animal in my own home. The more I learned, the more I realized that the internet isn't just a place for cat videos or trivia, it's a ledger of our true selves. I used a deep web recovery tool to see her deleted messages and the way she talked about me to her lover, calling me the ATM and laughing about how I'd never suspect a thing because I was too kind for my own good, turned my blood to ice. I wasn't a husband to her. I was a project. I was a means to an end. Every anniversary, every vacation, every I love you was a calculated move to keep the investment secure until it was time to cash out. I started looking at the cool things I'd learned online, metadata analysis, IP tracking, social engineering, and realized I could use them for more than just research. I could use them for justice. Or was it revenge? I honestly couldn't tell the difference anymore. I felt like a spectator in my own life, watching this monster in human skin cook dinner and talk about our future children, all while knowing she was counting down the days until she could discard me. I started monitoring her GPS data from her car. I noticed that her late nights at the office usually involved stops at a luxury apartment complex across town. Using public property records, I found out the apartment was registered under her lover's name, but the utility bills were being paid from a shell company that Sarah had set up using her marketing firm's credentials. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was committing corporate embezzlement to fund her second life. The audacity of it was staggering. She was so confident in her ability to manipulate me that she didn't even think I would ever look at the fine print of our lives. I found drafts of the Dear John letter she intended to leave me. It was filled with fake tears and lines about how we just grew apart and how she needed to find herself. It was a masterpiece of gaslighting designed to make me feel responsible for the failure of the marriage, even as she walked away with the loot. So that is the nightmare I found myself trapped in. I was married to a stranger who had spent 7 years treating our life like a tactical operation. I had the evidence, the logs, the photos, and the financial records. I was standing in the middle of our beautiful living room, surrounded by memories that were all lies, holding a weapon made of data. Before I tell you how I chose to end this, I want you to stop right now. Go down to the comments and tell me, if you discovered your entire marriage was a long con documented on the internet, would you confront them immediately, or would you wait and play the game back? What would you do if you were in my shoes, knowing the person you love was just waiting for the right moment to ruin you? I decided to play the game. I didn't say a word. I didn't change my expression. For 2 months, I became the perfect husband. I even suggested we reinvest some of our joint savings into a new account, which I secretly set up to be under my sole control, using the same legal loopholes she had been trying to exploit. I used my tech skills to set up a mirrored display on her phone, so I saw every text she sent to him in real time. I watched them plan their future in our house. I watched them laugh at my expense. I even saw them discussing which of my furniture they were going to keep and what they were going to throw away. It was agonizing to sit across from her at dinner, listening to her talk about our 10-year plan, while knowing she had already picked out the curtains for her new place with him. I started feeding her misinformation. I told her I was expecting a massive bonus at work, which prompted her to delay her exit date by another month to try and capture that extra cash. This gave me the time I needed to finalize my own counteroffensive. I contacted a forensic accountant and a private investigator to wrap everything up in a neat, legally binding bow. I also reached out to the IT department at her firm, pretending to be a security auditor, and pointed them toward the anomalies in their shell company payments. I was weaving a web just as intricate as hers, but mine was built on the truth. I spent my nights refining the tribute I was going to give her. Every time I felt like breaking down, I would reread the post where she called me a boring but necessary investment, and my resolve would harden. And then the day came. It was her birthday. She expected a jewelry box or a surprise trip. We had a big dinner planned with both of our families and all our close friends. About 30 people were gathered in our backyard, the atmosphere festive and warm. When it was time for toasts, I stood up. I told everyone how Sarah was a master of details and how she taught me everything I knew about the long game. I had set up a projector for a tribute video I'd made for her. The video started with photos of us, but as the music shifted from a romantic ballad to a cold industrial beat, the images changed. I projected her forum posts. I projected the screenshots of her ATM comments. I projected the photos of her with her lover and the spreadsheets of the money she'd stolen from our joint future. I even included the audio clips of her laughing about manipulating me. The silence that fell over that yard was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Her parents looked like they were going to faint. Our friends were staring at her in absolute horror. Sarah didn't scream. She didn't fry. She just turned pale, her face becoming a mask of pure, frozen shock. She had been outplayed using the very tools she thought I was too simple to master. I looked her in the eye in front of everyone and said, "I learned some very cool things on the internet, Sarah. I learned that you never really knew me at all." I handed her a folder containing the divorce papers and a printout showing that her exit fund was now legally frozen, pending an investigation into her financial fraud at her marketing firm. information I had also learned and passed along to her board of directors. But I didn't stop there. I had also sent the entire digital dossier to her lover's wife. Yes, he was married too. As Sarah sat there in the ruins of her reputation, her phone started blowing up with panicked texts from him. He was being kicked out, his own accounts were being scrutinized, and the perfect life they had planned together was evaporating in seconds. The betrayal was complete, but this time, it wasn't mine. The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal battles and social fallout. She lost her job within 48 hours because I had evidence of her using company resources to fund her business trips with her lover. Her reputation was in tatters. My gold standard marriage was gone, but for the first time in years, I could breathe. She tried to go to her online community for support, but I had already leaked her real identity and the evidence of her sloppy OPSEC to the foreign moderators. They turned on her too, mocking her for getting caught. She was truly alone. I sold the house, gave the dogs a massive backyard at my new place, and cut ties with anyone who tried to defend her. She tried to sue me for emotional distress and invasion of privacy, but my legal team pointed out that I had merely accessed shared accounts and public domain archives. She ended up with nothing, no exit fund, no husband, and no lover, as he vanished the moment the money did. I moved to a new city, changed my number, and started a new job where nobody knew me as the boring investment. I spent months in therapy trying to unlearn the training she had put me through. I realized that my kindness wasn't a weakness. It was just something she didn't deserve. I learned that the truth doesn't just set you free. It can be a flamethrower if you know how to aim it. I still have the occasional nightmare where I'm back in that house, but then I wake up in my own space knowing that everything around me is real. No more scripts, no more reward cycles, no more lies. Looking back, the internet is a terrifying place, but it's also the most honest mirror we have. I lost my marriage, but I gained my life back. I learned that you can never really know what's going on in someone else's head, but you can certainly find out what's on their hard drive. I'm starting over now, and while the trust issues are going to take years to heal, I'm grateful for that sleepless night and those cool things I found. It saved me from a lifetime of being a pawn in someone else's sick game. I now use my skills to help other people protect their digital privacy, turning my trauma into a career that actually helps people instead of exploiting them. If there's a moral here, it's that people will always tell you who they are eventually. You just have to know where to look and be brave enough to handle what you find. Never ignore your gut feeling, and never assume that just because someone is kind to your face, they aren't sharpening a knife behind your back. Like this video if you were on my side and think she got exactly what she deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this, because believe me, the internet is full of secrets just waiting to be dug up. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or was the public exposure the only way to truly stop a manipulator like her? I'll see you all in the next story.